oldest and only African American publication, though some might want to argue with that. And I want you to know that in doing so, we cover 17 cities, 89 zip codes, unincorporated areas of San Diego County as well. And so we are indeed very, very excited to be here with you. And we have Dr. Thompson here with us. And we appreciate Dr. Thompson being here.
Well, Dr. Warren, it's a pleasure being here tonight. So many things that are happening around the country, around the nation, and right here in even our own city. I know that we have an open format mic tonight, and so if you'd like to call in, you can call in at 858-251-6111, 858-251-6111, or you can go to godradio1.com and listen in on our app or on the website, or you can go to Facebook or YouTube, God Radio 1, as well as the Voice and Viewpoint Facebook, and you can hear, see, and be a part of the conversation.
And we welcome the input. We have so many issues that are going on right now. And one of the things that you will notice, the Voice and Viewpoint always says that a people without a voice cannot be heard. And we have been that voice for over 65 years. We are still that voice. We welcome the position of advocacy that we hold, where we speak up and we try to inform. And we always remind people that news has no color, but what does have a color is the perspective that we bring to the news, because we are impacted so often in so many different ways in terms of things that are really going on. And so we're in a crisis as a nation right now with a shutdown that is going to go almost indefinitely. The key to this crisis seems to be the Democratic Party and the extent to which that they will not yield on that demand in terms of saving health care items being restored in any as an amendment to any resolution or business that comes forth. The Republicans have dug in and said that they will not change. They think that they're going to make the Democrats come to the table, which is unfortunate. And it's very interesting that this week, yesterday would have been a payday period for many government employees. The only people that got paid were troops, and J.D. Vance made it look like the troops were able to be paid out of monies collected for the tariffs, but no nation has paid any tariffs on products coming into America. The money collected so far has come from higher prices put on goods coming in by the people purchasing them so that they can absorb whatever might happen. So the people were really being paid with their own tax dollars that had been collected in an unauthorized fashion. And so I have an editorial this week that speaks in volumes to this issue, because on the one hand, we have a shutdown, and we have part of the Project 2021 plan is being put in effect to terminate people during the shutdown. But on the other hand, we have the Republican members of the House of Representatives, including the Speaker who's in charge, in a recess mode, still drawing pay while the rest of the nation is not. And to add insult to injury, at the same time that our people are doing without, President Trump has given $20 billion to Venezuela. And so here we are. It was not authorized. You can call it a loan. This country has more outstanding debt with the International Monetary Fund than any other country on earth. And now, as of today, there are efforts to send fighter jets there to fight against the opposing opposition groups, because the president feels so strongly about helping this country, where the money they gave is not going to make any difference, and it's money out of sweat, blood, and tears of American citizens. Now, I got to say, folks, I really feel about America the way in many respects I felt about the people of Gaza being under control of Hamas. Anytime a nation is under the control of a hostile force, it's because they allow it to happen. And so the people do not rise up and fight against what's taking place. And so that's what we have. So this week in October 18th, we have a second No Kings Day protest nationwide, expected to exceed 15 million people participating. But this protest means nothing if those 15 million people do not become registered voters and stand up and get involved at the polls in terms of throwing out the Republican control of the House so that the Democrats can regain it. Why is that important? When the Democrats control the House, they have the ability to impeach the president. That's where impeachment starts. The trial might take place in the Senate, but the actions have to start in the House. And so far, we failed twice in terms of this. They are the ones, in terms of Article 1, having the powers to legislate. That's where the money purse issues start. And so the Republicans in the Senate, they are meeting and going through mindless votes because they really can't get it done without 60. So they need at least 10 Democrats to break ranks and cross over with them. And meanwhile, there is a discussion underway about removing Schumer as head of the Democratic majority in the Senate, which would probably clear the floor for someone like Cory Booker to step up because there's a desire for a younger generation to take over. So, Dr. Thompson, I don't mean to go through the whole litany. You know, I could just keep going with all of these things that are happening, but I'm hoping that in the midst of this, the national discussion, which is having local impact on us, and you're going to see it more in terms of the food banks and layoffs and delays in terms of people getting funds to pay their bills. And so we'd like to hear from you if you have thoughts one way or the other. Sometimes it's very good just to talk about it.
You know, one of the sad things about it, Dr. Warren, is that it really now seems like it's a battle between the haves and the have-nots. And Donald Trump has made it very clearly that anything that is Democrat, no matter if it's good or bad, he is going to cause pain so that they will be dissatisfied. But that's not, that, you know, is so unproductive to consistently do threats and threats and threats. You just talked about Venezuela, and I'm like saying, is he doing that because he wants the Nobel Peace Prize and hoping that she's going to give it to him? You know, there's so much that is going on, and for some reason, there's no checks and balances anymore. It's just whatever he wants, he's getting.
Well, the program is there. You don't have men that have and women that have a spine to vote against him. Nobody has figured out yet how he controls all these people, what the threats are, whether he's threatening their lives or their families or what. But people are ignoring their duties and responsibilities, just like Mike Johnson, who looks like an intelligent, nice person on the surface. But here he is going into the second or third week of not swearing in the newly elected Democratic member from Arizona who took her father's seat. And all he can say is she's a nice person. And he knows that when he convenes the House and he controls it, that once she's sworn in, she becomes the 218th signature on a discharge petition, which will then force to bring in the Epstein files forward. And so they're willing to sacrifice the country. And, you know, maybe people need to suffer more because at some point, history shows when people get tired of suffering, they turn. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's trying to arm the military and get them involved. And Trump does not intend for us to have another election after 2026 if he can't control that one. Mm-hmm. And if he's not in office in 2028, because he can't, there's no room for a third term since Roosevelt did that one time. Trump is taking a page from the Russian president's playbook because he's been in charge of Russia for over 25 years. And at one point, probably about 15 years ago, when they reached the limit under their constitutional limitations on office, he put his vice president in that he controlled. And then when that term was up, he was able to come back and run again because he just couldn't run in consecutive terms. And so it's not about America anymore. And that's the problem because the law says that To hold office and not to carry out the duties of the office is malfeasance in office.
Yeah.
And so, for all kinds of reasons, he should be in jail, the people around him. And let's not get it twisted. Don't just look at Trump. J.D. Vance would be as bad, if not worse. Hessett is crazy and he has no business even being near the Pentagon, let alone Secretary of Defense. And in every instance, now you have the Supreme Court just falling lockstep in terms of what he wants to try to get done. But I think we have to keep pushing. We must vote, folks. We must rise up, and we must seek out people that will vote the position of the American public and not the position of Trump.
Let me ask you this question, Dr. Warren. Just recently, I had a conversation with someone over Prop 50 here in California, and their concern basically was that, so what if it passes in California? There's so many other Republican states that are going to do exactly what they're doing that they've done in Texas, and so at the end of the day, the math is still not going to be in our favor.
It always amazes me that people who want to do nothing are so quick to criticize and try to justify their doing nothing. And it just doesn't work that way. Okay? The real problem is it does make a difference. There are at least 5 districts in California that we want to turn so that they can become Democratic. And so those 5 districts, California, I told you, Texas, New York, and California have the largest congressional delegations. California has 52 members of Congress, and 12 of them are Republican. Right here in San Diego County, we have Darrell Issa in East County. We have Marty Von Wolfall running against him, and she's a Democrat, and we would flip that seat because that seat belonged to Duncan Hunter and his son and that whole element. And when the redistricting was done after the last census, Issa, who lost ground up north, he was put in the area, and he was acceptable to everyone because he was a conservative Republican, and they were trying to keep the Chaldeans from getting the seat. And so now we have someone who is a very able person, member of city council that's termed out, and she's running for the seat. So every vote counts, folks. Every vote counts. I do not support Sarah Jacobs. I think she shouldn't be in office, but I'm forced to vote for Sarah Jacobs because Hakeem Jeffries will not be the speaker unless we get those other 6 or 7 votes that will flip the House. That's why Mike Johnson, the speaker, swore in the 2 Republicans that won, and special elections in Florida recently, immediately because of the numbers.
So how can he swear them in and bypass swearing in the, is it from Arizona?
She's from Arizona. It's always interesting to see how people are doing things. The reality is that he can get away with it for a moment, but when I was listening to this, my mind went back to the story of Adam Clayton Powell v. McCormick, where Powell was expelled from Congress, stripped of his rank, and put out. The people of New York re-elected him and sent him back to Congress. And so what the Congress did was they had to seat him while, and there was this lawsuit, and what the Congress did was it agreed to seat him, but it put him as the most freshman member on the committee that he had chaired, knowing that his ego would not allow him to come. And as I worked on that committee and watched these people, even if his name was mentioned afterwards when he didn't come back, they got nervous. The best thing he could have done was to have come back and taken that junior seat and stayed right there as a reminder of what had happened. But his ego wouldn't let that take place. Remember that if you pull up the Supreme Court case of Powell v. McCormick, that he won that case. They put him out, and the Supreme Court said that the people of New York had a right to representation. Now, this lady who has been elected, duly elected, is not like she was from D.C. if she was from D.C., it wouldn't matter whether or not she was seated because the delegate from D.C., the Virgin Islands, and Guam, they have no votes in the House, and they are not states. And there's always an effort to block them becoming states because of the impact, knowing that those votes, those additional senators would probably be Democratic, and that would be against the scheme of things.
Yeah. So basically, how long do you think he can hold out without swearing her in?
Well, he can hold out until, and she seems to be young, and I don't know who's advising her, but her people should be going to court right now, bringing an action to have her seated. And I think that precedents, as I remember the Supreme Court cases involved, precedent would be on her side. The problem is that will this court that Trump supports 5-4, would they do their duty and uphold her right to be seated, which they could do, or would they just refuse to hear the case, in which case he still gets away with what he's doing?
Well, and at the end of the day, people are going to consistently say, and where are the Democrats? It seems like the Democrats are being very docile and very passive, and it doesn't seem like there's any aggression that is taking place from the Democratic Party at this point.
Well, there are a couple of people are being aggressive. AOC, Alexander Ocasio-Cortez from New York is very vocal. Surprisingly, many people would like to replace Hakeem Jeffries as well, even though he's waiting in the wings. And Nancy Pelosi was saying the other day on the news commentary, yeah, he could be the first black speaker, but people are worried about how strong a speaker is he going to be. Right now, he's holding the Democrats together, and if the Democrats cave in on this, they're gone. The polls already show them being down 30%, and it's their own fault. Even here in California, we're trying to mobilize people to vote for Prop 50, and the Democrats are going through the same old playbook. Last week, I was on a press conference with the governor and 2 black members of Congress and the chairperson of the Legislative Black Caucus, Senator Akilah Jeffrey Pearson, Dr. Shirley Weber, Secretary of State's daughter, who represents our area in the state Senate. And they were talking about the importance of this whole thing and how people really to mobilize the vote. And they were talking about the campaigns that were being done by radio and television. Well, in the midst of that, yeah, it's nice, but even the press conference was a sham because you weren't allowed to see who was on it. We were invited to be on it as black press. We couldn't see who were the participants. They cherry-picked what questions they were going to answer. Nobody talked about putting any money on the table to help us do the campaign. We just can't start just running ads just because they make a great speech and we feel, oh, how wonderful, hail to the flag, and then we supposed to absorb it while they paying everybody else. The electronic media is Christmas every time there's a campaign. They get paid, and we don't because we're afterthought. And even though Dr. Weber made a point to put some special funds out there, I think about $20 million to try and move this along, by the time they finish talking and organizing and figuring out where it's going to go and who's going to get it, we'll be down to maybe a week before the election. Exactly. So for our publications that are weekly, we would have lost the opportunity to financially be of help. Even here in San Diego, when we run where the polling places are and where the drop boxes and all those things, those are pages that we contribute. The Register of Voters has reduced what they do to us to a quarter-page ad, one for 4 weeks. So for 4 weeks, quarter-page ad. I don't even know if they're doing you with the radio as they should be, but everything they do with us is microscopic compared to we put more in than they give to us.
Yeah, and I think that, in moving forward, again, the vote is going to be our most powerful tool and our most powerful weapon. And really, the black vote is one of the most, that's the game changer, is getting the people of color, especially black people, out to vote and not being docile or being passive on this issue. again, you can say, well, there are other states out there. But at the end of the day, I believe that we can still balance it off because if other states do it, then there are other states, I believe, that are democratic that will fall in line.
Well, let's do this because people start talking and they don't do their homework. Utah and Ohio and a couple other states, he's trying to go, he being Trump, is trying to go into every state that has a Republican-controlled governor or legislature to get them to rearrange their district. That's the gerrymandering in a time that it would only be done every 10 years. And if I said on here before, the reason we have the census every 10 years is because the Constitution demands it. And the byproduct of the census, in terms of where the population is, determines how the seats in the House of Representatives move. The 435, they're not increased, they're just relocated based on population shifts. And in the Senate, they stay fixed at 2 senators no matter what the size of the state. And so, in effect, it kind of models the British system of the House of Lords being our Senate, the House of Commons being the Congress. The lower house is elected on a 2-year terms, supposedly allowing the masses to participate. But once they get in, they got to spend most of their time raising money so they can get reelected. So it's all been laid out. You know, people thought for the longest time that in voting they elected the president, it took the things we've been through recently to show the president is not elected by the people. The president is placed by the votes in the Electoral College. And so these are the kinds of things that were allowed to govern us because we weren't raising questions and we were going with it. But we have no excuse today, Dr. Thompson. We need to get educated. We need to decide we're going to vote. You know, last month I had an editorial that said, in spite of and not because of. And all my editorials are online. I'm reminding people that our forefathers, they did things in spite of segregation, Jim Crow, and everything against them. They found ways to do. And we've become so weak. Well, I don't see how it's going to work. And we've come all about me instead of it being all about us and realizing we're in it together. We've come so far that we have people seeking leadership roles at the expense of our issues so that they can look good. People who don't want to speak to you, but they're going to tell you when the cameras are rolling how we all should hold hands and vote. And so this is the reality of where we are.
Well, and the biggest thing is that we must be involved. You know, again, we can't complain about things and what's not happening if we're not doing this, the basic minimum. That is voting, being involved, and then also educating ourselves. And sometimes in the education, you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid of having conversations. You know, and there could be tough conversations. Just the other day, I had a tough conversation with somebody about Prop 50, and we went around and around in not an argument mode, but she was really trying to educate herself. And so we were talking about what was in the voter guide and everything else.
Was she a registered voter?
She is a registered voter, and she was voting. She was literally ready to vote. And what was swaying her was, will it make a difference if the other states come in and do the things? And that's the question that some people are doing. But that's at the end of the day, if you vote your conscience, vote your heart. That's all I can ask you. But just know what you have to know the real reality of things and not what it could be. Let's look at the reality of it being right now. So, Dr. Warren, that's one of the big topics that's happening. What's some of the other topics that are taking place? You know, Donald Trump, you know, bless his heart, we're still praying for him because he openly confessed that he don't think there's nothing he could do to make it into heaven, you know, but we're still going to pray that God somehow...
Did he say he didn't think he could?
He said it live in an interview. Said, I don't think there's anything I can do to ever make it to heaven. So, you know.
Well, I just think that's wonderful that he acknowledges where he's headed. And that puts a strain on those of us who are believers because on the one hand, Jesus says we are supposed to pray for those who despitefully use us, but he puts us in a position where that is really tested because of what he's doing and how he's doing it. we got other issues going on though,
Mhm.
Dr. Thompson, and I'm very concerned. Um, in this city, we have issues. In this city, we still have a budget crisis.
Mhm.
In this city, there's a gear up to try and meet the demand, the additional food demands from Feeding San Diego and the food bank, because more families are challenged in terms of food. Um, the nutrition program SNAPs have been removed. People are trying to act like it's a big deal because
Well, not everybody know what SNAP is, so you got to break it down.
SNAP is the supplemental nutrition assistance program, okay, which used to be the old food stamp program. And so people were able to get and then you saw the EBT card,
Mhm.
which became the instrument of making dollars available for people. And of course, Republicans have always taken the position that people were wasting that money, and in some cases, people did waste the money in terms of what they bought on. You see fast food places that'll take EBT, liquor stores that pretend to have some groceries will, and the people who have the cards they pay a heavy price for buying in a community that's a food desert, so that we don't have adequate food stores in the first place. And it's just not here; it's across the country. And every time I'm in a city where I see it, and people are talking about there ought to be a grocery store in our community, and I look at them and I listen, and I said to myself, "Oh yeah, I've seen this play out city by city, state by state. You come into the community, the store, they open the store, they try to hire people in the community. The people in the community, if they come to work, they steal. They help their friends steal. The stores run deficits and they can't keep up in terms of supplies, and pretty soon they close and go out of business. And so that's why they stop opening the stores in our communities. And so we complain, and yet we act like there's no connection between our apathy or our lack of involvement and the conditions under which we live. But the Republicans and the Heritage Foundation and the Project 2025 people, they have figured us out like good anthropologists, and they know that we will fizzle, but we won't sustain. We will be few in terms of the struggle. I know from many, many years of personal efforts to support the underdog, that when it came to election time, I lost many of positions because the people that I sacrificed and fought against the system would not come out and vote for me to overturn what was happening with the system. And so I think there's some more suffering that's going to be in order before more people wake up. You know, a lot of the people who are suffering right now, black and white, are people who voted for Trump. They drank the Kool-Aid. They thought it was going to be different, and they're hurting. Just like one of the Epstein victims who was on television talking about what they went through and how she was surprised at the attitude of the president and how they hadn't done anything about this case and how they had covered up Epstein. And the lady said in passing, and I voted for Trump. Yeah, well, you're getting a return on your vote, your investment, okay? And the rest of us, we're going to suffer, but you're going to suffer more because you bought the Kool-Aid. Right now, Dr. Thompson, this latest thing with these thousands of emails from these young Republicans who are spewing hate, who are talking about how they love Hitler and calling us watermelon people and how we're monkeys and all of these kinds of things that are going on. The governors of some states where those people work terminated them, but the White House said it's okay. We're not going to pay attention. And we need to understand that when people say stuff long enough, it becomes acceptable. And so that's why we can't allow folks to get away with calling us names, disrespecting us. We can't wait until our job is gone and then we want to call everybody to come. But as I drive around San Diego, like in Eastlake, where they've been protesting No King's Day every Saturday out there. And 99% of the protests that you see in the over 2,000 locations around the country, the people marching do not look like us, okay? And we sit back saying, well, we ain't going to participate because they didn't do Black Lives Matter. You better get off your behind and get out there because you're in the same pot. And this shutdown is going to help everybody realize that they're in the same pot.
Well, even with the shutdown, the concern is how long will it go? They're blaming the Democrats, and I think the Democrats should have a different strategy. Say, hey, we're fighting for your health care, we're fighting for this, we're fighting for that, and they're trying to take it away. That's why we're standing. We're standing on your health care, we're standing on this. But it doesn't even seem like they're saying that. It seems like, hey, well, they're just not supporting, we're not going to move. I think that they could go on the offensive now and literally make a difference in how people see them as Democrats.
Well, tonight, I believe Chuck Schumer and OAC, Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, they have been going around the country into the very districts of the Republican folks who voted for the big, beautiful bill, speaking up and mobilizing folks to get involved, because the answer is to get rid of the people who are drinking the Kool-Aid. There ought to be recalls going on in addition to identifying who you're going to run next year in the midterm. Yeah. And so Trump knows that he's losing. That's why he wants to pull the mailboxes, stop voting by mail. When he's voted all of his time by mail, now he wants to block it. Okay, the whole thing with the troops, he knows it's illegal, but it's a scare tactic, and we got to get like people in other countries and rise up and say we're not going to do it.
Well, help me to understand this. What countries that have military bases in our country? I don't know. I know some that might come and train over here. But
no country is supposed to have a military base in this country. And that whole idea about allowing, I forget which country it is,
Qatar.
put Qatar in Iowa is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But what's even more scary than that, Dr. Thompson, and the average American person has not stopped to look at how much of America is owned by foreign people. If you really stopped and took a look how much Canada owns in terms of businesses, China owns so much land in this country in terms of farms, corporate farming entities and things that people started protesting, trying to challenge the ownership. But we can't go into these other countries and just buy land. If you're not a nationalist, you can't do this. And so Trump has turned America into his own private giveaway piggy bank, and we just sit back. We are the laughing stock of the universe, that we have a fool as a leader when we're supposed to be a leader among men as a nation.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked that whole thing is that this is the same country that gave him the big jumbo jet. And now all of a sudden...
They gave him the jet, and it's the same country before then that he had called a terrorist. And the jumbo jet that he received, he's not legally authorized to receive because it's a violation of the Emolument Clause, which says that any gifts given to the president or our foreign, our representatives, like ambassadors to other countries, those gifts become the property of America. They are not the personal property of the person receiving the gifts on behalf of America. And so Trump is going to spend all of American tax dollars. This plane is huge. It's bigger than Air Force One. And he's spending our money to re-outfit it with all of the kind of stuff it has to have if it's going to be the vice presidential plane. And then he's talking about under the guise of it going to his library, okay? And he's doing a takeoff after what happened with Reagan, where the presidential plane he uses at the Reagan Library. And so this is the only time in American history that there's been a man who used the position, the number one position in this nation, all about himself. You don't hear him talking about feeding people. They're destroying health care. They're destroying Food and Drug Administration, monitoring stuff. They're destroying the federal trade. They're trying to destroy the Federal Reserve. Uh, they're intending to fire 10,000 people during this pandemic,
There's
and
a layoff.
I mean this layoff. And so, and we're just sitting back. Thank God for this week, but it ought to be. And let me say, in fairness, there are protests every week, and the mainstream media has bought into this because only if you follow things like MSNBC on a Monday or Rachel Maddox, where you see the screen showing all the different cities. Mainstream media is not making a point of letting people know which cities the protests are in because they're afraid of Trump themselves.
Let me ask you this question: the hate attack or the attack on everybody who was against him when he was quote unquote in office, and now this I don't even know if I could call her the attorney general because she is just so out the box, but she's going and now sending indictments out for all these different people that quote unquote was against Trump. But she showed so much disrespect to the offices of the.
Well, you're talking about Pam
Pam
Bondi,
Bondi,
and she is Attorney General, and you know, there are some remedies if people would move to deal with it. If you are a lawyer and you're a member of the bar, you are held to a standard that doesn't allow you to just do what you want to do. And what's his name? The former mayor of New York?
Eric.
No, I said the mayor of New York.
Okay.
The one that lied and with the makeup running down his face.
Oh,
and
Giuliani.
Giuliani went all around the country. He and that other woman, Powell, they were disbarred. They lost their licenses. And the protocol and respect that goes with being a judicial officer, I don't doubt that charges will be brought up against her at a later date because one of the members made it point that I will be seeing you again, even if it's after this. So the stuff's not going to go away. But right now, she is comfortable in her rudeness and her disrespect, as of all the people that he has put in position. And they have been told it don't matter what they say, they can't do nothing. We got the House, we got the Senate, we got the court, and we got the troops.
Yeah.
So we have all the elements we need to do what we want to do in America, and that's just too bad if you don't like it.
Yeah. So I think that it's definitely going to get much worse before it's going to get any better. Like you had said last week, he's been in office for 8-9 months, and we see that what you said, over 40% of the Project 25 is in effect.
Oh yeah, 40% of Project 2025 has been implemented, and the guy who's head of OMB is the mastermind behind it, and he's got plans to implement the rest of it. We were supposed to be coming up with our own project. You know, we got things like the Joint Center for Political, what they call it, the Joint Center for Politics and something, which is the black think tanks. I remember when they created it in Washington 50 years ago. And so they do research, but I think Roland Martin put his finger on it a few weeks ago when he talked about how this whole movement is to frighten people in terms of giving money to nonprofits, and the lion's share of what black people do is involved in nonprofit entities. Now, I found it very interesting what's going on here. A few days ago, the NAACP held its Freedom Fund dinner. And I'm sure they had a lot of people there, and they did a lot of awards and stuff. I didn't cover it. We weren't given notice of it. We weren't invited. I could care less. I'm embarrassed that the NAACP has fallen so far from what it was. In my almost 40-some years here, the Voice and Viewpoint worked hand in hand with the leadership of the NAACP to respond to complaints of discrimination, housing, and unjust treatment, and all the things that people were. You don't hear anything from this group. And people like yourself who was among those who gave so willingly so much to help were driven out. and leadership now, nothing takes place. And here, there was a time that the NAACP and the Urban League were considered two flagship entities in the struggle for equality in terms of Black America. In San Diego, you can't find that. Now, let me just be very clear. I have nothing against the people personally who are in charge of these organizations. I think they're nice people, and I love them with the love of the Lord. But at the same time, uh, I don't see them taking positions that are reflective of the struggle that we're in and the extent to which we need help. And recently, there was this little leadership forum on a Saturday, and people talked about, elected folks got up and talked about how they got involved in politics and how they wanted to mentor people. It was the Black press in every city in this nation that stepped up. Offices were firebombed and people were brutalized, and yet the Black press never stopped writing and fighting for us as a people. And today, half of these people that we're talking about that are leading entities, they don't read, they don't subscribe, they follow social media. They could care less in terms of any suggestion that anybody outside of their orbit is important in terms of the scheme of things.
Well, Doc, I think that, when they said getting in good trouble, sometimes, and a lot of times during the struggle, we weren't invited to the table. We just worked, we walked in and presented our own self and became a part of it. I think that in this time, in this season, we're seeing a shift where everything is just that instant. Everything wants it instantly. And nobody values sometime the old way of doing things. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said when you had questions back in the day, say, go to your parents and say, what about this? Parents say, go look it up in an encyclopedia, right? Now, if kids got questions, it's like, oh, never mind, I'll just Google it, and Google becomes the source, but then the kids are then not challenged to go more in depth than just what they find in Google. You know what I'm saying? Use the tools like an encyclopedia and really go in depth to find out more, not just the AI answer that you're getting. And I say that because just recently an artist died. And all the press outlets said he had passed away. But AI said he hadn't passed away. It wasn't true. And so it brought a conflict between what AI said versus what the news media was saying. Ultimately, the news media won out. You know what I'm saying? Because AI had to catch up with the information that had been put out. So I think that even in this time of the season, we will be forever in a position to continue to teach, ever in a position to continue to be a beacon, because the bottom line is if we're not, people will just go to what's easy versus what's expedient, and not always the true essence of the story. I always say a lot of times, Dr. Warren, people come on and you say they say that they're listening, because to be able to have an education and hear true history, and not that I'm reading about it, but I was there, and how being impacted was there. A lot of us don't understand, if you've never really been hungry, never really not have something, you don't understand that plight. You could say, well, I empathize with you, I feel your pain, but until you actually live through it, can you literally say, you know what, I really feel your pain and I don't want to be there. Not saying that people don't understand when people go through something, or if they haven't gone through it, that they don't understand, but the impact is different. The expedient of how we go about things, how when this the whole fact of voting, if we just go back just 50, 60 years, voting was like, it was a thing that we all wanted. And now, vote if, people have the vote if you will.
Well, we all wanted it because when people Dr. King gave speeches like May 17, 1957, when he said, "Give us the vote, and we'll put the people in office, and we'll put in the judges and all those things." We didn't have those people in position. And when you go back, 70 or 80 years, people were still putting emphasis on education, and churches were taking up money to help send little Johnny and little Mary off to school. George Walker Smith himself came from a sharecropper family, and he was selected by the people on that situation. They sent him off to school, and from school he went off to college and to seminary. But he was a lucky one. There were people still left where he lived with a dirt floor. They didn't even have wood floors in the house. And so we have harmed our children in the sense that we have given them what we didn't have, thinking that that was a sign that we were making progress, and at the same time we were spoiling them because they weren't developing any work ethic or concern. I'm amazed that people have kids who have finished school and the parents are working and they laying up at the house all day in bed and not doing anything, and you still feeding them. You know, the birds got better sense than that, because I've watched a nest many years ago right outside my bedroom window, and when the little ones hatched and got a certain size, and this was like 8 stories up, and my building at the time, I saw the mother kick them out the nest, and they either spread their wings and flew on their way down, or they were dead at the bottom of the ground. But they had to do something, and so we are, again, we got to put God back in the picture. Now, Dr. Thompson, I got to do this little commercial thing here because I just made a discovery. I do my Bible studies on Zoom, and of course I've struggled to understand how to use all of it. And I recently got a grip on it and realized I have almost 70 messages on Zoom in terms of Bible study and sermons that I'm now moving to my YouTube page, which I forgot I had, so that people can have access. And I find it's important for people to have a chance to understand and be exposed to the Word, because the Word will help shape you in terms of what you do and how you think and who you become. It's just so important. And so we have been raised on political correctness and favoritism rather than Word. And in this city, we got issues. You don't want to see a high water bill. You don't want to pay for your trash. That's okay. If y'all rally together and get enough people, you can stop that. But at the same time, they can't close the library on Sunday to substitute, when there are other things that can be done. And then people are complaining about taxing parking at Balboa Park. Well, parking at events downtown. Well, they've been robbing us at events all the while. I don't hear anyone challenging the contracts that Ace Parking Authority has with the city that's been allowing them to charge. I mean, if you went to Civic Theater on a night that there was, and you used one of those parking lots that was controlled city property leased to Ace or whichever company, I think Ace has most of it at this point, then you saw, okay, $40 fees and whatever, and now those fees have become par for the course. We saw it at the Midway in terms of how people are, so yeah, you can take the trolley and go around it, but we still put people in office that make these decisions. And the plan is to keep us working so many jobs and so busy that we're too tired to think about government when we come home. And so they can keep doing what they're doing to us. And we need to just start redirecting our energy and our time.
So, with that being said, Dr. Warren, as we move forth, I always say that for myself, I feel like I have less time in front of me than I have in back of me. And so it's kind of like in this time in the season, using your time, your skill set with people that will make sense. I think that the time out right now is for a whole bunch of meetings, in my opinion. My whole thing is that I want to get with people that are ready to do. And if you're not ready to do, then we're just wasting time and it's just a feel good. And I think that this is the season where we're going to really be challenging each other to be about it and not just talk about it.
Well, Dr. Thompson, I know you mean well, and it's a statement of truth. What you said is truly stated. But the problem with what you just said, it goes to the essence of it. Because I keep hearing people saying, time out for meetings we want to do. But how can you know what to do if you don't know what was done before you got to the point that now you want to do? Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to listen, and I found this in Black Men United, you've seen it, when I used to try to educate a younger element to the things we did, all I would get is, well, we don't want to hear all that. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, the first thing you need to do is listen. And if you listen and learn something, then maybe you will understand the difference between playing checkers and playing chess. Mm-hmm. Okay? But when you want to just rush out because you got to do something, but you don't know whether it was done before, did it fail, did it succeed? Okay? When we talk about the importance of the black vote, every election can hang on one vote, folks, mm-hmm. no matter what color it is, whether it's black, Asian, white, Chinese, Martian, if they're registered and they're a citizen, everything can hang on one vote. And we as black people have set the tone for political participation mm-hmm. through blood, struggle, sweat, tears, and on bended knees. Mm-hmm. And now that everybody has picked up what we laid the foundation for through the 50s and 60s and 70s, now we decide to go on recess. Mm-hmm. And that's the part we can't do it. Each week you and I do Black Men and Women United. Mm-hmm. We have over 100 and some people that we send notices to. And we don't get 100 and some people responding.
Well, what I'm thinking, or what I'm saying, Dr. Warren, is not, meetings that are fruitful. I'm talking about we have a lot of meetings that take place that are just talking heads. They talk, we say we're going to do something. Like you had said, Prop 25, or not Prop 25, but Project 25.
Yeah.
There was a whole think tank that was supposed to come with a secondary plan. They met a lot, but nothing came out of it.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So when I say it's time out for meetings, I'm like, it's time for doing, listening, learning, and then implementing. Many times we can be very, very good starters, but we're not good finishers.
Well, see, that's what made the Panthers so successful. If you go back and look at the history and the organizing, they were people who read, they were educated, where they knew what they were doing. They had to be readers. When you take a group of young black people that look at the Chinese Revolution in terms of Mao Zedong and what he did with the Little Red Book, and they go with their own printing presses, print copies of that Little Red Book, and then go to Berkeley to the white campuses and sell that to those students to raise money to go back to the neighborhood to feed people. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's being involved and having a public affairs ministry. How would they know to do that? Because they knew that people doing movements had ministries and had people who handle public affairs, who handle feeding and all those things. And most of us today don't give to those things. I'm proud to say the Voice and Viewpoint through the pandemic, and I've said it before, we supported the food bank, Feeding San Diego, volunteers. We've always been about giving beyond what we have because that's how we've been blessed to still be here. And so this is important that we get back into this. I have never wanted the Voice and Viewpoint to present itself as the leader for San Diego. I always wanted the Voice and Viewpoint to be an instrument, an institutional instrument that the people of San Diego used to maintain a continuity with the history of those who came before us in terms of their deaths and their sacrifices so that we are enjoying a better life today. That's the whole idea. And so we've got to get there, but we can't get there until we get beyond self. And we can't get there until we get beyond friendships, until we get back to what is right, what is morally right. And a disagreement does not mean a war. A disagreement means that someone is trying to do something different. And you mentioned talking. I've said many weeks that one of the reasons Joan Kropp left the Center for Peace and Justice at USD and she left those in several cities around the country, was because they became places for people to come together. If you study Socrates and Plato and these guys, they came to the marketplace and they had discussions of ideas and points and principles. And so we read Cicero and we read all of Aristotle and all of the teaching, because there was a building block scenario. That our very framework today is built on what was done way back then. So why do we have to stop now just because we got social media and everything that's online is not truth? Yeah. But if you're not listening and you're not engaged in dialogue beyond your own limited thinking, then how do you know?
Well, we've got a few minutes left. Let's just talk about your editorial this week and some of the highlights of the paper that has hitting the press tomorrow, or on the street tomorrow.
Well, the editorial this week is an interesting one, encouraging people to look at the fact that while many Americans are going without paychecks and working and expected to work, like TSA and essential workers, the lawmakers, being the Republicans in the House, are not working and getting paid, and educating people to the fact that Congress as a lawmaker has always excluded itself from having the laws apply to them. So we need to just keep looking at what's being done and prepare for what's the alternative. We should be creating food banks in our churches and locations where education is under attack. Churches should be creating libraries. There should be centers of bringing people together. We did this 40 years ago here. We had Saturday schools for our kids, and we had retired educators that came out and continued the education process. So we need to go back, as they used to say, let's go back to the old home ground and look back. We got a bunch of young new ministers in town now who attrition has brought, and they got energy and they have a desire to work. And some of us have to help them build a bridge between what was done before they came and what they can do going forward.
Yes. Well, Dr. Warren, I will say definitely that we still have a lot of work to be done in this time, in this season. I want to encourage everybody to get your copy of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint this week and see the editorial from Dr. John Warren. Also, if you have an issue or you have a thought or a premise, please send a letter to the Voice and Viewpoint. All letters are read, and many times they are published, or most times they are published. And last but not least, I want you all to know that we want you to continue to listen to GOD Radio as we're going to continue to give you the best in music as well as in positive talk and where we're going. Dr. Warren, final words.
Yes, I do have a couple of final words here. Number one, I want to encourage you, if you don't listen, I encourage you this Friday to listen to NPR's StoryCorps, which has a presentation of an interview between my daughter Chida and myself that's going to play nationwide. It's also going to be on Instagram, and while they're only doing about 3 minutes on the morning shows around the nation, there are links to the whole interview, and I think you might find it of interest. The other thing is, get those ballots in, please. If you haven't registered, you can still do so. Get to your local point of turning in the ballots. Get them in early so they don't get left out. We should be standing in line to vote on Election Day, November. We should be already have our stuff in, and we should be just waiting for the count. California needs to set the tone in terms of this, under this Election Rigging Response Act that the governor and this state passed. We need to get involved and vote. Please, folks, vote. Even if you don't understand, there's one question on the ballot. It's yes or no. Just go, sign up. If you weren't registered, you can register. They can seal it. They can count it later. But vote, and get those you know to vote, and those in other states to be on their guards to vote. This is the only way we really beat this man. In spite of the 18 million people that might come together this weekend, it means nothing unless we vote.
With that being said, this is from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. Please tune in next week where we will have more tantalizing discussions and probably a special guest for you next week. Right here on GOD Radio 1. Y'all be blessed.